Hey everyone! So in this video I want to talk about something that I came across recently in a talk that I was listening into by Tara Moore, who's the wonderful author of Playing Big. And during the talk she said something along the lines of, the work isn't to think better of ourselves, the work is to think bigger than ourselves. And it really stopped me in my tracks, because it's just so kind of counterintuitive in a way, because I think we spend so much time trying to think better of ourselves, to convince ourselves that we are kind of all the things that we feel like we're expected to be, whether that's relating to our skills, our performance, our looks, all of it. Whereas actually, maybe that's not the place to look. Maybe actually we don't need to spend all our time trying to convince ourselves and others that we are a certain person, or to try and change ourselves to fit into those expectations that we have. Maybe instead we should be looking in a different direction and actually look at, what is this bigger picture that we fit into? Because when we focus on kind of trying to think better of ourselves, it's, to me anyway, it kind of feels very small. It feels very kind of closed off from everything around us. And so actually, like, I wonder what happens when we start to look at that bigger picture. What happens when we start to think about like who we are in that bigger picture, and to think bigger of ourselves, bigger than ourselves, rather than better of ourselves. And for me, I've been kind of mulling over it for quite a while, and there's something about kind of zooming out of this kind of bubble that we so often live in, that can become so small. And by zooming out, we kind of see what's important, and can start to kind of use that as our North Star, use that as our guide in terms of how we live our day-to-day life, rather than being kind of pulled along by the expectations that we have, or by the external messages that we're receiving about how we need to better ourselves. And it feels really different doing it that way, because it's like, it feels, for me anyway, like I am part of this bigger thing, this bigger, I've said, kind of bigger picture. And it kind of puts a lot of things into perspective, because it starts to make me think, okay, well, what do I actually want in life? What's going on around me in the world that I want to be part of when I'm 80 years old, 80, 90, 100 years old, and I'm looking back on my life? What do I want to have experienced? What do I want to have done? Who do I want to have met? Where do I want to have gone? And I think for me anyway, like I try and do this almost on a daily basis, try and just spend a moment pausing and zooming out. Because, as I said, we can so easily get caught up in the weeds of the day-to-day, or in the weeds of the chatter that's going on in our head about what someone said, or what we have to eat that day, or stuff that's going on in the news, or it could be anything, my boss, my job, kids, anything. And we get so tangled up in that, and that's just kind of part of being human. That's just the way well, that's the way it kind of happens, that we so easily get drawn back into that. But I wonder just what would happen if you were to just take a pause and allow yourself to kind of be drawn out of those weeds, be drawn out of the everyday chatter, the everyday worries, and look at what for you that bigger picture is. What is it that you really truly want? What do you want to experience? What do you want to put out in the world? And even if it's just for a few minutes. And because for me, when I've done that, it kind of acts as a bit of a circuit breaker almost. Like, I've certainly had it a lot in the past, and still happens sometimes now, just getting sucked in by those anxious thoughts and ending up at the bottom of a rabbit hole because I've just kind of followed what's been going on in my head, and I've been paying so much attention to that content, and then it starts to kind of get out of control almost, and then I feel panicky and stressed and everything feels urgent. So I wonder whether maybe when we start to just kind of feel like we're getting a bit tangled up in that, we can just pause and zoom out and see what happens. Like, for me, different things show up on different days when I do that, but it's almost like kind of touching base with what's bigger, what's maybe more important, and just allowing ourselves to be drawn back out of those weeds, that chatter, that anxiety. So maybe just reflect on that, what it would be like to zoom out, and instead of trying to think better of yourself, actually start to think about thinking bigger than yourself, and just see what shows up. Feel free to leave any comments below, and don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.